The room went dead silent as Ethan Morgan slammed his napkin on the mahogany table during family dinner. "You think sitting in that wheelchair makes you special?" he sneered. "You're nothing but dead weight, Grace, a broken woman clinging to my name." Under the glow of the chandelier, Grace's hands trembled against the table edge. Her mother-in-law smirked. The mistress Harper twirled her wineglass and whispered loud enough for everyone to hear, "Maybe he should trade you in for someone who can actually walk." Guests gasped. Ethan pulled an envelope from his jacket and dropped it beside her plate. "Happy dinner," he said coldly. "Divorce papers. Sign them before dessert." Grace didn't cry. Her other hand rested protectively over her small, pregnant belly as she steadied her breath. She only looked up, her calm eyes meeting his. And for a flicker of a second, just one, Ethan looked afraid. Because what no one knew, not the mistress, not the family, not even Ethan himself, was that the woman he just humiliated, pregnant, disabled, and quietly powerful, owned the very company that kept them all rich. So what happens when the woman they call worthless decides to remind them who really holds the power? This is the story of how a husband divorced his disabled and pregnant wife at a family dinner, and she canceled their $950 million deal. Hello, family. Welcome back. Before we begin, please click subscribe. Every single click helps us tell stories of courage and truth. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from. Because when we share these stories together, we remind each other that even in pain, we can rise. The crystal glass shattered before anyone could blink. "Enough!" Ethan Morgan's voice boomed through the dining hall, echoing off the marble walls. "I'm done pretending this marriage isn't over." The long mahogany table trembled under his hand. Under the chandelier's golden light, Grace Morgan, his wife, sat frozen in her wheelchair. Her left hand instinctively moved to her stomach, 3 months pregnant, as though protecting the tiny life growing inside her. The chatter died instantly. "Ethan, please," she said softly, her voice barely audible. "Not here, not in front of everyone." His mother, Victoria Morgan, smirked from across the table, her pearls gleaming like little trophies. "He's right, dear. This family can't afford pity anymore." And then came the laugh, sharp, cruel, deliberate. Harper Steele, the mistress, leaned back in her crimson dress, swirling her wine. "Oh, Grace," she said sweetly, "he deserves someone who can stand beside him, not someone who rolls in behind." The words sliced the air like knives. Guests exchanged nervous glances, but no one spoke. Grace's fingers trembled on the wheelchair armrest. The smell of roasted lamb and wine suddenly felt suffocating. Ethan reached into his suit pocket, pulled out a white envelope, and tossed it onto her plate. "Happy dinner," he sneered. "Divorce papers. Sign them before dessert." Gasps spread through the room. Victoria smiled faintly, proud of her son's cruelty. Lily Parker, Grace's childhood friend and only ally, sat 2 chairs away, her face pale. "Ethan, this is disgusting. She's pregnant." "Exactly," he interrupted, "and I refuse to raise another weak generation." Grace's eyes filled but didn't break. She looked at him for a long moment, the man who once held her hand through hospital nights now looking at her like a stranger. Then, slowly, she picked up her napkin, folded it neatly, and placed it on the table. Her voice was calm, but the weight of it silenced the room. "You know, Ethan," she said, "you've always confused silence for weakness. Maybe that's why you never saw how loud truth can be." He scoffed. "You talk like you have power." Her gaze sharpened. "No, Ethan, I have something better, memory." For a moment, his expression faltered. Then, from under her sleeve, a thin gold chain glimmered, a small key hanging from it, catching the chandelier's light. Her late father's key. No one else noticed it, but Lily did. Grace took a deep breath, her hand still resting protectively on her belly. "You've made your choice tonight, but remember this moment," she said softly, "because when everything falls apart, this is where it started." The hall was so quiet that even the clink of her fork sounded like thunder. Ethan rolled his eyes. "You're delusional." But for the first time in years, Grace smiled small, knowing, dangerous. "Do you know what reporters are saying?" Harper Steele's voice thundered through the glass office. She stood in front of Ethan's desk, eyes blazing, a tablet shaking in her manicured hand. "They're calling you heartless. They're calling me a homewrecker." Ethan Morgan didn't look up. He was staring at the city skyline, jaw tight, pretending her words didn't sting. The morning light poured through the windows, painting him in cold gold. "It'll pass," he said flatly. "They always move on to the next scandal." Harper threw the tablet across the room. It cracked against the floor. "You divorced a pregnant, disabled woman in public. Ethan. That's not a scandal, that's suicide." Behind her, Victoria Morgan, Ethan's elegant but ruthless mother, stepped out of the elevator, pearls gleaming as usual. "Watch your tone, Harper," she warned. Grace was pitiful long before the dinner. "My son simply did what had to be done." Ethan turned finally, eyes tired but defiant. "Mother's right. Grace was holding me back. Helios needs strength, not sympathy." Harper scoffed. "Strength? You mean greed." At the far end of the office, Mark Benson, Ethan's quiet but loyal associate, looked up from his laptop. "Sir, we've got another problem," he said nervously. "Grace's father's estate has been reactivated. There's movement in the Morgan Trust account." Ethan frowned. "That's impossible. Her father's been dead for years. There's nothing left to reactivate." Mark hesitated. "Unless she found something." The words hung in the air like thunder before a storm. Harper crossed her arms, smirking through her anger. "Maybe your little saint wasn't as helpless as you thought." Victoria rolled her eyes. "She's pregnant, Harper. A child doesn't make her powerful." Harper walked to the window, looking out over the glittering skyline. "No, but a motive does. She'll fight now for that baby." Ethan slammed his fist on the desk, startling everyone. "Enough! Grace doesn't have the guts to fight me. She's weak, always was." Mark exchanged a quick, uneasy glance with Harper. The door suddenly opened. Grace appeared. Her wheelchair glided silently over the marble floor, her hands steady on the rims. The morning light framed her face, soft but unyielding. For a brief second, even Harper's confidence cracked. "Grace?" Ethan stammered. You shouldn't be here." She looked at him not with anger, but with eerie calm. "Relax," she said. "I came to congratulate you on your new life." Harper smirked. "How thoughtful." Grace's eyes slid to the desk, where a folder labeled Helios Merger, $950M, sat in plain view. "I see your priorities haven't changed." Ethan snatched the file off the table, flustered. "You have no business." Grace cut in softly. "I had plenty of business here once. You just never noticed." Then she leaned closer, her voice a whisper. "Don't mistake my silence for surrender, Ethan. It's just timing." She turned her wheelchair toward the door and left as quietly as she had entered. The air she left behind felt heavy like a fuse burning toward something no one could stop. Because when timing meets the truth, even the mighty forget how to stand. The sound of laughter echoed through the upscale cafe, but it wasn't joyful, it was cruel. "She came in a wheelchair, honey." "A wheelchair," whispered Clara Jennings, one of the city's notorious gossip columnists, her voice dripping with mockery. "And get this, she's pregnant." Can you imagine the headlines? Across from her, Harper Steele stirred her cappuccino with a silver spoon, pretending to look bored but secretly enjoying every word. Beside her sat Victoria Morgan, perfectly composed, as if humiliation were an art form. "Let the world see her pity party," Victoria said coolly. "My son's future doesn't involve charity cases." Harper smirked. "Don't worry, Victoria. I've already spoken to the press. By tomorrow, everyone will believe Grace married for money and trapped Ethan with that baby." Clara's eyes widened. "That's harsh." Harper's smile sharpened. So was pretending to love a man she couldn't even walk beside. The laughter that followed was low and poisonous. At a nearby table, Lily Parker Grace's loyal friend froze mid-sip. Her eyes flicked to her phone screen, recording every word. Her heart pounded. She knew what this meant. They weren't just trying to destroy Grace's marriage, they were trying to erase her. She texted quickly, "Gee, we have a problem." Across town, in a small apartment overlooking the river, Grace Morgan sat in silence. The television played softly in the background, broadcasting the headline she had dreaded: "Pregnant ex-wife of CEO Ethan Morgan greedy or desperate." Her hands trembled as she muted the sound. The news anchor's smiles felt like knives. Her wheelchair faced the window, the faint glow of the skyline reflecting in her eyes. She could almost hear Harper's laughter echoing through the glass. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, slowly, she rested a hand on her belly. "They can mock me," she whispered, "but they won't touch you." The phone buzzed. A message from Lily appeared on the screen. They're planning a smear campaign. I have recordings. Grace exhaled deeply, her trembling replaced by calm. So, the war begins, she murmured. She rolled to her desk. The lamp's light glowed on an old photograph. Her late father standing in front of the Helios logo, smiling proudly. In her memory, his voice was firm and gentle. Never fight with rage, Grace. Fight with reason, it lasts longer. Her eyes hardened. Then I'll reason them out of everything they think they own. The clock ticked softly as she opened a dusty folder labeled Trust and Estate Confidential. Inside were papers she had never dared to read before. But now, she turned each page like a soldier loading a weapon. Down below, thunder rumbled over the city, distant but building. Because storms don't warn before they strike, they just remind the arrogant that rain falls on everyone. If you're watching this and you haven't subscribed yet, please take a second to do it now. Every click, every share, every comment helps us keep telling stories that give strength to women and children who've been broken, forgotten, or silenced. When you subscribe, you're not just supporting a channel, you're standing beside survivors, saying their stories matter. Turn on your notification bell so you never miss a story that could change a life. And in the comments, tell us where are you watching from and what part of this story spoke to your heart. Grace, you need to see this. Now. Lily Parker's urgent voice cut through the late-night silence. The apartment lights flickered as thunder rolled outside. Grace spun her wheelchair from the desk toward the door, her eyes narrowing. Lily burst in, drenched from the rain, clutching a soaked brown envelope to her chest. What happened? Grace asked, alarmed. Lily locked the door behind her, breathless. I went to your father's old attorney's office. They were cleaning out the archives, and I found this. It's from him. She laid the envelope on the desk. The seal bore her late father's initials, W.M. Grace froze. Her fingers hesitated before tearing it open. Inside were several faded papers and a flash drive wrapped in tissue. Lily leaned closer. It's dated 2 months before he passed. Grace unfolded the first page. Her father's handwriting stared back at her. To my daughter Grace, if you're reading this, then you've been wronged. What you don't know about Helios will change everything. Her heart pounded. He knew, she whispered. He knew Ethan would betray me. Lily connected the flash drive to Grace's laptop. The screen blinked, revealing folders labeled Trust Clauses, Ownership Transfer, Confidential Memos. One document opened automatically, a signed amendment with her father's signature. In the event of my death, Grace Morgan becomes the controlling shareholder of Helios Technologies, holding 60% equity through the Morgan Family Trust. Lily gasped. Grace, this means the company is yours. Grace stared at the screen, her mind racing. Her husband had divorced her, mocked her, called her weak, yet all along, she had owned everything he thought was his. Her voice trembled. He used my signature after my surgery. He stole my documents. But he never touched this file. She leaned back in her chair, her eyes glassy. For the first time in months, she let herself breathe. The weight of humiliation, gossip, and betrayal began to feel smaller. My father left me the weapon, she said softly. I just never knew how to use it. Lily smiled through tears. Then use it now. Make them remember who you are. Grace nodded slowly. Not yet. I need proof and witnesses. When I move, it'll be public. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the room. Grace's shadow stretched across the blade. The wall still seated, but powerful. She reached for her father's photo on the shelf, tracing his name. You always said patience is a form of strength, she whispered. I understand now. Lily placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. You're not alone anymore. Grace smiled faintly. No, but they are. The rain softened outside. The hum of the city returned. Then, a quiet ding echoed from her laptop. A new file had appeared on the drive, one she hadn't opened. Its title glowed faintly in the dark. For Grace, read when you're ready. Grace's breath caught. Dad, what did you leave me? Because sometimes, the dead don't stay silent, they whisper blueprints for revenge. Grace, they'll destroy you if you go alone. Lily Parker's voice trembled as she followed Grace down the hallway of the old Helios Archives building. The metal doors groaned open, revealing rows of dust-covered file cabinets and the faint smell of paper and time. Grace didn't slow down. Her wheelchair rolled forward with a steady hum. I won't be alone, she said. My father didn't build this empire by himself. I'll find the people who helped him. Lily held the flashlight higher. You mean the ones Ethan forced out? Grace nodded. Exactly. The ones who know what integrity looks like. The beam of light caught an old brass nameplate on a door. David Reynolds, Senior Counsel. Grace's breath caught. He was my father's lawyer before Ethan took over. She pushed the door open. Inside, the office looked frozen in time, papers scattered, books leaning, a photo of her father shaking hands with a young David. A soft voice came from the shadows. You took long enough. Lily jumped. Grace's eyes widened. From the corner stepped David Reynolds, older now, gray at the temples, still carrying that calm authority she remembered from childhood. Mr. Reynolds? She whispered. He smiled faintly. Your father? Told me you'd come one day. I just didn't expect it to be after everything burned. Grace's voice cracked. He left me a letter. And a file. David gestured to a chair. Then you already know he hid your inheritance inside the Morgan Trust. But there's more. Your father had a backup plan for betrayal. A plan named Project Phoenix. Lily leaned forward. What's that? David opened a drawer and pulled out a thin folder marked Phoenix Clause. It's an investment clause your father filed with the SEC. If Helios was ever mismanaged or corrupted, ownership would revert to you automatically, once proof of fraud was presented. Grace stared at the document, disbelief flooding her face. You mean, the company would legally fall back to me? David nodded. Yes, but you'll need hard evidence. Ethan covered his tracks well. Grace's mind spun. Then we find it. Every forged signature, every stolen cent. David smiled approvingly. I can get you access to the audit trail. But you'll need someone who understands numbers, like bloodlines. Lily's eyes brightened. I know someone, Noah Jameson, my old friend from the finance division. He used to work under Ethan before he quit in protest. Grace turned her gaze toward the window where the rain had started again, the droplets sliding down the glass like tiny mirrors. Then tell him to pack his conscience, she said. We have work to do. David placed the Phoenix file into her hands. Your father would be proud, Grace. He always said you had his patience and your mother's fire. Grace looked down at the folder, her reflection trembling in the glossy cover. Patience built this company, she murmured. Fire will take it back. A lightning flash illuminated the room, and for a heartbeat, a shadow moved outside the frosted glass door. Lily froze. Grace! Someone's been following us. Grace didn't turn around. Then let them. Watch, she said calmly. They're about to see something worth fearing. Because the next move wouldn't be made in secret, it would be made under lights bright enough to blind. Close the blinds now. Lily Parker rushed across the small office, yanking down the shades as Grace Morgan's wheelchair slid into the room. The hum of the rain outside was drowned out by the whirring of computers, screens flickering with lines of numbers. At the center of it all sat Noah Jameson, early 30s, sharp eyes behind rectangular glasses, the kind of man who saw truth in numbers before anyone else did. His fingers moved across the keyboard like he was composing a symphony. They've been moving money for months, Noah said, eyes locked on the screen. Ethan hid millions through dummy shell companies all under the Helios banner, but he didn't expect anyone to dig this deep. Grace leaned forward. Can you prove it? He nodded. Every transaction leaves a fingerprint. I just found one that leads straight to an offshore account signed electronically by Harper Steel. Lily's eyes widened. His mistress helped him steal from his own company? Noah gave a grim smile. Love makes people stupid. Greed makes them reckless. The tension in the air was sharp enough to cut. Grace's hands tightened on her armrests. Then we'll use both. Suddenly, the power flickered. The screens blinked. Once, twice, and then a red warning flashed across every monitor. Unauthorized, access detected, connection terminated. Noah cursed under his breath. They found us. Someone's inside the network. Lily panicked. You said this system was untraceable. It was, Noah said, typing furiously. Unless someone fed them the location. Grace stayed calm, her voice cutting through the panic. Then they're watching. She turned toward the glass wall that looked out onto the street, rain streaming down its surface. Let them, they'll only see the surface. The light steadied again. The red alert vanished, replaced by a still image of the Helios logo. Noah exhaled, shaken. They just sent a warning. No data's lost yet, but if they hit again, we'll need to relocate. Grace nodded slowly. Good, Then we move tonight. She glanced at the folder on her lap, Project Phoenix. Her father's handwriting was still crisp across the top. My father wrote this plan for corruption, she murmured. Maybe he always knew it would come from inside his own walls. Noah looked at her curiously. You really think he predicted this? She smiled faintly. He didn't predict it. He prepared me for it. The words settled in the room like quiet thunder. Lily touched her shoulder. Grace, you're fighting a billion-dollar machine. Once you expose them, there's no going back. Grace's gaze hardened. I'm not going back. I'm going through. Outside, lightning illuminated the skyline, reflecting off the wet pavement like fire on glass. Noah's computer pinged. He frowned. That's strange. Someone just sent a message through a private server. Grace turned toward the screen. It displayed a single line. I know who killed your father. The room fell silent. Because some secrets don't just ruin reputations, they rewrite bloodlines. Noah, trace it. Grace Morgan's voice cut through the storm of keystrokes as the mysterious message glowed on the screen. I know who killed your father. Noah's fingers flew across the keyboard, his reflection flashing in the blue light. It's coming from a private satellite relay. Whoever sent this knows exactly what they're doing. Lily Parker stood behind him, arms folded, trying to mask her fear. Grace, what if it's a trap? Grace's hands tightened on the arms of her wheelchair. Then we spring it first. The tension in the room was thick, humming between the screens and the rain pounding against the glass. After several long seconds, Noah's screen beeped. Got it! A blurred image appeared, a man in his 50s, sitting in a dimly lit office. His voice came through the speaker, low and rough. Grace Morgan, if you want the truth about your father's death, meet me at the old Helios construction site. Midnight. Alone. The call ended. Static. Lily spun toward Grace. You can't go there, it's abandoned, dangerous. Grace's expression didn't change. So is every lie they've built. Noah leaned back, rubbing his temples. If this is real, we need protection. Let me come with you. Grace looked at both of them. No. If it's genuine, they'll only talk if I come alone. My father's world was built on secrecy, whoever this is, they know that. The storm outside had grown stronger by the time Grace reached the deserted Helios construction site. The cold air bit at her skin as she rolled her chair across the cracked pavement. The sound of water dripping echoed through the unfinished steel beams. She stopped under a half-built roof where an old security light flickered weakly. You wanted me here, she said into the darkness. So talk. A figure stepped out from the shadows, Elias Hart, her father's former chief of security, the man she hadn't seen since the funeral. His face was older, roughened by guilt. Grace, he said softly, I failed him. Grace's breath caught. You were with him the night he died. He nodded. I was. But your father didn't just die from a heart attack. He was poisoned, slow, undetectable. It started weeks before that night. Her stomach turned. Poisoned? By who? Elias looked away, his voice shaking. He suspected someone was stealing from the company. He was going to confront them. That same week, Ethan and Harper convinced him to sign a joint investment document. Grace's heartbeat thundered in her ears. You're saying Ethan had him killed? Elias hesitated. He wasn't alone. Lightning flashed, illuminating his pale face. Your father trusted the wrong man in his boardroom, and the papers that killed him are still buried in the Helios vault. Before Grace could speak, a gunshot cracked through the night. Elias staggered back, blood blooming across his chest. Elias! She screamed, reaching for him, but his body collapsed beside the wheelchair. His hand trembled as he pointed toward the distance. Find the ledger. He went still. Grace looked around in horror. Somewhere beyond the beams, a shadow moved watching. Because sometimes, the truth doesn't just return, it comes armed. Noah, we're running out of time. Lily Parker's voice cracked as the elevator doors clanged shut behind them. The sound echoed through the underground levels of Helios Tower, where the company's private archives were kept. Dim emergency lights flickered, painting the walls in red. Grace Morgan, her hands trembling on her wheelchair rims, looked straight ahead. He killed Elias, she said quietly, her tone more controlled than her shaking fingers. That ledger proves it, and everything else. Noah, carrying a slimline laptop and a portable scanner, led the way through the corridor. The security logs show no guards down here after midnight, he said. We have 15 minutes before the system resets. Lily's flashlight cut across a silver-plated vault door. That's it, Helios, confidential records. Noah's fingers flew across the keypad on the wall. Encrypted. Ethan thought he buried the past in a password. He smirked faintly. He forgot I wrote the system. With a hiss, the vault door unlocked and swung open. The light revealed rows of metal drawers, sealed envelopes, and data drives marked with Helios logos. Grace wheeled herself inside, scanning the rows until her eyes landed on one drawer labeled Legacy Accounts. There! Lily pulled it open. Inside lay a single black leather ledger, heavy, old-fashioned, and embossed with a faint gold M. She handed it to Grace. Grace's pulse quickened as she flipped the first page. Her father's handwriting sprawled across the paper, meticulous, angry, determined. If this book is found, then the company I built has been corrupted. The men responsible are the ones I trusted most. The next pages listed account numbers, offshore transfers, and forged signatures. Ethan's, Harper's, and Victoria's. Lily gasped. Oh my God. He left names, dates, everything. Noah scanned the pages quickly. This is enough to take them all down. But before Grace could speak, the lights suddenly went out. Darkness swallowed the room. A low mechanical hum began to rise, the vault security system rebooting. Someone's triggered the lockdown? Noah hissed. We've got 90 seconds before it seals. Lily grabbed the ledger, clutching it to her chest. Grace, we have to move. Grace's voice was steady, cold. Go. Get it out. I'll stall them. No way, Lily protested. I'm not leaving you. Do it, Grace snapped, her eyes fierce in the dim red glow. If they catch me, they get nothing. But if that book leaves this building, Ethan's empire burns. Lily hesitated, then ran. Noah followed, the scanner beeping as he downloaded the last files. Grace turned toward the door, her silhouette framed by the flashing red lights. The hum grew louder. She could almost hear Ethan's voice in her memory. You're nothing without me, she whispered to the empty room. Then watch what nothing can do. A metallic clank echoed as the vault began to seal. Grace reached for her father's photo tucked inside her coat pocket, whispering, This time, I'll finish what you started. Then, a shadow appeared on the wall, tall, moving slowly toward her. Because the man who destroyed her life had just walked back into the dark, and he wasn't alone. Music thundered through the ballroom as Ethan Morgan raised his glass beneath a chandelier of diamonds and light. Cameras flashed, the air shimmered with wealth and arrogance. To new beginnings, he declared, voice smooth and confident. To Helios Technologies, and to the $950 million merger that will redefine power. Applause erupted. Beside him, Harper Steele, the mistress, gleamed in a scarlet gown that caught every spotlight. She leaned in, smiling at reporters. To the future, she added, her voice sweet poison. Victoria Morgan, Ethan's mother, sat nearby, wearing pride like a crown. Our family's empire, she whispered to a guest, is untouchable. But as the applause faded, the ballroom doors opened. The crowd turned. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Grace Morgan appeared at the top of the staircase. She wore a long black gown, simple yet commanding. Her wheelchair glided down the ramp beside the stairs, guided by the soft light of the chandeliers. In her lap rested a slim black folder, the ledger. A murmur rippled through the guests. Is that her? The wife? The one he divorced? Harper's smile faltered. What is she doing here? She hissed. Ethan froze, his practiced grin cracking for the first time all evening. Grace stopped halfway across the marble floor. Her calm presence silenced the room. I'm sorry to interrupt, she said, her voice carrying easily. I just came to congratulate my husband on his new beginning. Gasps fluttered like paper through the crowd. Cameras turned. Ethan forced a smile. Grace, this isn't the time or place. On the contrary, she replied, eyes sharp. It's the perfect time and the right place. Harper stepped forward, feigning charm. Grace, honey, this is a celebration, not a courtroom. Grace's tone never changed. Funny you should say that, because the last time we were in a room like this, my husband handed me divorce papers. Tonight, I brought something of my own. She lifted the black folder, and the crowd leaned forward. Ethan's face paled. You don't know what you're doing. Oh, I do. Grace said quietly. You built your empire on my father's company and on forged documents. You signed his name after he was dead. Whispers spread like wildfire. Victoria's hand flew to her mouth. Harper's glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble. Ethan's mask shattered. That's a lie. Grace's gaze didn't waver. Then prove it, because I have the ledger and every signature you thought you buried. Reporters surged forward. The flashes turned relentless. Grace turned to the crowd, her voice steady. This merger was built on stolen money. And tonight, I'm here to make something clear. The deal ends now. Ethan lunged toward her, fury twisting his face. But David Reynolds, her late father's lawyer, stepped out from the side entrance, holding up a court order. By order of the SEC, he said calmly, all Helios transactions are frozen pending investigation. The ballroom exploded in noise, panic, disbelief, and chaos. Grace met Ethan's eyes one last time. You took everything from me, she said softly. Now I'm just taking back what was already mine. The lights flickered. The giant LED screen behind the stage suddenly glowed red with a single line. Helios fraud files. Uploading 12% complete. Because the truth wasn't just about to surface, it was about to go viral. Do something, Ethan. Stop her. Harper Steele's voice cracked like shattered glass as she slammed the ballroom door behind them. The crowd's shouts still echoed from the hall, reporters demanding statements, cameras flashing, investors screaming. Inside the private lounge, chaos reigned. Victoria Morgan paced like a caged animal, her pearl necklace trembling in her fingers. This is a nightmare, she hissed. Everything we built gone because of her. Ethan's tie was undone, his shirt damp with sweat. It's not over, he snapped, running a hand through his hair. She's bluffing. That ledger could be fake. Harper grabbed his arm. Fake? You saw her face, Ethan. She's got proof, and now the SEC is here. If those files upload, we're finished. Victoria turned, eyes blazing. You told me you deleted everything. I did, Ethan shouted. Every account, every forged signature. He slammed his fist into the wall. She wasn't supposed to find the originals. A voice came from the corner. Carl Whitman, one of Helios's senior investors, had been standing silently by the bar, drink untouched. His tone was cold. You've been lying to us, Ethan. You said the merger funds were clean. Ethan's head snapped up. Carl, listen to me. Carl cut him off. No, you listen. Half the board just resigned. The other half wants your head. Victoria tried to intervene, but Carl's glare stopped her cold. Mrs. Morgan, I respected your husband, but your son just doomed this company. He turned and walked out without another word. The door slammed, leaving a ringing silence. Harper sank onto the sofa, shaking. You said she'd never fight back, that she was weak. Ethan's jaw clenched. She is weak. Harper looked at him, her voice trembling. Then why does she look stronger than both of us combined? Victoria stepped closer, lowering her voice. Listen to me, Ethan. Grace may have proof, but she doesn't have power, not yet. If we can intercept those uploads and discredit her first, we can still survive. Harper frowned. How? Victoria's eyes glinted. We leak a news story that she faked the pregnancy, that she's mentally unstable, obsessed with revenge. If the media turns on her, the board will too. Ethan hesitated. You want me to destroy her reputation again? His mother's smile was cold. It worked before. Harper glanced at him. And what about me, Ethan? When this blows up, I go down with you. He stared at her, silent. For the first time, Harper realized there was no we left. Before anyone could speak again, the door burst open. Noah Jameson stood there, drenched from the rain, holding a small flash drive between two fingers. You're too late, he said, voice calm but lethal. The uploads are complete. Every lie, every theft, it's all public. Ethan's face went white. What did you just say? Noah's expression didn't change. The world knows what you did to her and to her father. Because by the time truth reaches daylight, it doesn't knock. It breaks the door down. Play it. The command came from Grace Morgan, her voice calm but cutting through the chaos like glass. The ballroom had not recovered from the earlier explosion of scandal. Reporters still crowded near the stage, flashes blinding every second. Executives whispered, lawyers argued, and somewhere in the back, a champagne glass fell and shattered. At the center of it all, Grace sat in her wheelchair before the microphone, hands folded over the black folder. To her right stood Noah Jameson, her quiet but fiercely loyal tech ally. To her left, David Reynolds, her late father's lawyer, ready with documents and a thumb drive. The screen behind them flickered, and a voice began to play. "Transfer it under my name. No one will question it. She doesn't even know what she signed." Ethan's voice, sharp, cruel, recorded clearly. A gasp rippled across the hall. Cameras turned instantly toward Ethan Morgan, who stood frozen near the back, surrounded by his board and Harper Steele, his mistress. "Stop that recording!" Ethan shouted. "That's illegal." Grace's tone didn't waver. "So was forging my father's signature." Another clip played. Harper's voice laughed faintly. "She'll be too busy in therapy to notice the missing funds." It's almost poetic, isn't it? The crowd erupted, shock, disgust, whispers of, "Did she really say that? And that's his wife's inheritance." Harper stepped back, face pale. "That was taken out of context." Grace tilted her head slightly. "Funny. I don't hear any context that saves you." The room fell silent. Only the sound of the audio continued. Ethan and Harper discussing the hidden accounts, mocking Grace's disability, and planning to move her father's company into Ethan's sole ownership. By the time the clip ended, the silence was suffocating. Ethan's father, Mr. Morgan Sr., finally spoke from the front row. "Is this true, Ethan?" Ethan stammered, sweating. "Dad, it's not. His father's disappointment cut through him like steel. "You destroyed this family's name." Grace took a deep breath. For a moment, her calm cracked not from weakness, but from release. "You humiliated me when I was at my lowest," she said softly. "You told everyone I was useless. But you forgot something, Ethan. I was raised to fight fair and to finish what my father started." The applause began slowly, one investor, then another. Within seconds, it grew into a roar. Harper turned to Ethan in panic. "We have to leave." But security had already arrived. Two agents stepped forward with federal badges. "Ethan Morgan, Harper Steele, you're under investigation for fraud, forgery, and corporate theft." Cameras surged again. Reporters shouted questions. Grace sat motionless, her eyes wet but unyielding. Ethan turned one last time, shouting across the hall, "You'll regret this." Grace met his glare with a calm smile. "I already did. Once." Because she knew the arrest was only the beginning, the final reckoning was yet to come. "Get those cameras out of my face." Ethan roared as the officers pushed him through the hotel lobby. Outside the ballroom, chaos swallowed everything. Sirens wailed, reporters swarmed, and flashes from dozens of cameras turned the night into lightning. Ethan's once immaculate tuxedo was torn, his cufflinks missing. Beside him, Harper Steele sobbed, mascara streaking down her face as she clung to her purse like a lifeline. "This isn't happening," Harper whimpered. "You said no one would ever find the files." Ethan jerked his arm away from the officers, glaring at her. "Shut up, Harper. You were supposed to delete the backups. Don't you dare blame me," she screamed. "You're the one who told me to do it." Their fight was drowned out by the media frenzy. Behind the chaos stood Noah Jameson, calm and watchful, his camera phone recording everything. "Truth has a funny way of showing up when you least expect it," he murmured to the officers beside him. Inside the ballroom, Grace Morgan watched the scene unfold through the glass doors. Her reflection in the window looked foreign. The same woman who'd once been humiliated at that very spot now sat poised, her calm more powerful than Ethan's former arrogance. Lily Parker, standing beside her, whispered, "You did it, Grace. They're finished." Grace's eyes softened. "No, Lily, we did it. My father's legacy didn't die in vain." David Reynolds, ever the steady presence, stepped forward with a small envelope. "The board just voted, Grace. They've reinstated you as chair of Helios Holdings, effective immediately." Grace stared at the papers inside the company name her father built, signed back into her hands. Tears filled her eyes, but she blinked them away. "He said I was dead weight," she whispered. "But this company, it always had my name written in its bones." As the applause began from inside the ballroom, hesitant at first, then growing louder, Grace took a long breath. She remembered every insult, every cruel smirk, every night she'd cried alone, wondering if she'd ever stand tall again. Now she didn't have to stand at all. Her strength was everywhere in the truth, in the justice, in the people who never stopped believing in her. Outside, the officers shoved Ethan toward a black car marked Federal Investigation Bureau. His mother's screams echoed as the doors slammed. Harper tried to run, but reporters blocked her path, microphones stabbing forward. "Did you steal from your husband's company?" one shouted. "Were you involved in the forgery?" another barked. Harper froze, her eyes darting wildly. Then, in a moment of self-preservation, she shouted back, "It was all Ethan. He made me do it." The crowd gasped. Inside, Grace whispered to herself, "They always turn on each other when the truth comes out." Noah turned toward her. "What now?" Grace looked past the chaos to the night sky beyond the windows. "Now," she said softly, "we rebuild the right way. Because the night wasn't over yet, and someone unexpected was still watching from the shadows." Flashbulbs exploded like fireworks as Grace Morgan rolled onto the stage of the Helios Tower Auditorium. The air was thick with tension, journalists elbowed for space, cameras locked onto her, and the sound of whispered questions filled the air. At the podium, a banner read, "Helios Holdings Official Statement." Behind Grace stood Noah Jameson, David Reynolds, and Detective Laura Pierce, the lead investigator overseeing the corporate fraud case. Their presence said everything. This was not just a company announcement. It was Judgment Day. Grace adjusted the microphone, her movements calm and deliberate. The hall fell silent. "Good evening," she began softly. "You all know my name. What you don't know is what it cost me to sit here today." Her voice carried across the packed room, measured, steady, almost too calm for the storm behind it. She continued, "Years ago, I was told I was nothing. I was told I wasn't strong enough, smart enough, or useful enough to build anything on my own. My husband, Ethan Morgan, made sure everyone believed that lie." A murmur ran through the reporters. She let the silence linger, tactical silence, long enough for the cameras to lean closer. "But truth," she said, "has a strange way of surviving lies, especially when it's written in ink." She opened the black ledger on the podium. Pages fluttered like wings as she held up the evidence, her late father's signature, the forged accounts, the false contracts Ethan had built his empire on. "This book," she said, voice rising now, "is my father's voice from beyond the grave. The empire you thought was built by Ethan Morgan was stolen from a dying man and his disabled daughter." Gasps echoed. Cameras flashed like lightning. Grace lowered her gaze, emotion tightening her throat. "I was in a hospital bed when my husband forged those signatures. I woke up unable to walk, but it wasn't the accident that paralyzed me. It was betrayal." Reporters murmured again, some visibly emotional. Detective Pierce stepped forward and spoke into her mic. "For those asking, Mr. Ethan Morgan has been charged with 6 counts of corporate fraud, embezzlement, and falsifying financial documents. Harper Steele is under investigation for aiding and abetting." Applause broke out across the room, not loud but powerful, the kind that grows when truth finally lands. Grace smiled faintly, though her eyes glistened. "I don't celebrate their downfall," she said. "I celebrate justice. Because every woman told she's too broken to rebuild, I want her to know she can." The cameras zoomed in on her face as she closed the ledger. "I may sit in a wheelchair," she said softly, "but I stand taller than I ever did beside him." The crowd rose to their feet. For the first time, Grace wasn't a victim, she was the headline. As the press conference ended, a security guard leaned in to whisper something to Detective Pierce. Her face stiffened. Grace turned. "What is it?" The detective hesitated. "We just received word. Ethan escaped custody during transport." Grace froze, her hands tightening on the armrests. The room's applause faltered into murmurs. Because the man who once broke her body wasn't done trying to break her spirit. Rain lashed against the windows of the Morgan estate as the front doors burst open. Ethan Morgan, drenched and wild-eyed, staggered into the marble foyer. His tuxedo jacket was torn, his cuffs stained, his expression half mad. The flashing red of police sirens pulsed across the walls like a warning heartbeat. "Grace!" he shouted, his voice echoing through the mansion that once belonged to her father. "Where are you?" His words were more plea than command. From the far end of the hall, the soft hum of wheels broke the silence. Grace Morgan appeared, calm as ever, her black dress glinting faintly in the dim light. Behind her stood Noah Jameson, protective and firm, and Detective Laura Pierce, weapon drawn but lowered, ready. Grace stopped at the base of the grand staircase, the same one she once climbed every morning before the accident that changed her life. Her eyes met his, steady and unafraid. "You shouldn't be here, Ethan," she said quietly. He took a step forward, shaking. "They turned me into a criminal. You did this to me." "No." Grace replied, her tone like steel. You did this to yourself the day you signed my father's name. Ethan's laugh was bitter, broken. I loved you, Grace. I built everything for us. She tilted her head slightly. You built it on lies. You built it over me. He flinched at the words. I made mistakes. Mistakes? Her voice rose, calm breaking for the first time. You left me in a hospital bed, unable to walk, while you took my father's company and his name. You called me dead weight. Tell me, Ethan, how much did my worth weigh to you then? The silence that followed was thunderous. Ethan's breathing grew ragged. I just wanted power. I thought it would make me someone. Grace's gaze softened for a moment, pity, not forgiveness. Power doesn't make you someone. It shows who you already are. Detective Pierce stepped closer. Mr. Morgan, surrender now. There's nowhere left to run. But Ethan ignored her. He stared at Grace, eyes red. You think you've won? He whispered. You think they'll respect a cripple in charge? Grace's expression didn't change. They already do. Noah placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. She nodded once. Detective, take him. Pierce moved forward, but Ethan suddenly lunged toward Grace. The move was desperate, wild, a final burst of broken pride. Noah blocked him instantly, forcing him back as Pierce restrained him. Ethan struggled, screaming her name as he was dragged toward the door. You ruined me! Grace exhaled slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. No, Ethan. You ruined yourself. I just stopped letting you ruin me too. The officers led him out into the storm. His voice faded into the night. For a long moment, Grace sat in silence, the rain tapping gently against the windows. The empire her father built was hers again, not through vengeance, but through truth. Then, her phone buzzed. A single message from an unknown number appeared on the screen. You may have won this war, Grace. But Helios wasn't the only thing he sold. Her eyes lifted slowly toward the rain-smeared glass, where the city lights flickered like distant sparks. Because some battles end in courtrooms but others begin in shadows. Hello, family. Thank you for watching till the end. If this story touched your heart about truth, courage, and standing tall even when you can't walk, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Because every quiet woman the world once called broken deserves to rise again.